Okay, y'all, day 2 has had so many incredible things happening on all the stages. I am particularly excited about the session we have coming up in here. I need you to get me hyped up in the chat while I try to get you hyped up in this room. So please let me know who you are, where you're calling in from, how you're doing. I would love some funny gifts right about now. We have an incredible session for you, but I have to start, first of all, by giving a huge shout out to our partners over at Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is a movement that unleashes the power of radical generosity around the world. Giving Tuesday reimagines a world built upon shared humanity and generosity. Their global network collaborates year-round to inspire generosity around the world with a common mission to build a world where generosity is a part of everyday life. It is so much more than just Tuesday, y'all. Also, thank you, Pamela. I'm going to need some other folks to join Pamela in there. Maybe you're just searching for your favorite gift. That's okay. Drop an emoji if that felt like a big question. But if you want to learn more about Giving Tuesday, click on we'll give you a little CTA if that hasn't already popped up yet. But I actually want to just jump right into introducing these two incredible speakers because we are so lucky to get to dive into this topic, building trustworthy AI, Mozilla's vision for a safer digital future, hosted by Woodrow Rosenbaum over at Giving Tuesday. And we are so lucky to be joined by Nabiha Syed. Welcome. Woodrow is the Chief Data Officer at Giving Tuesday, where he leads research and data initiatives that inform global generosity movements. With a background in marketing analytics, social impact research, and civic engagement, Woodrow is known for his insights into donor behavior and nonprofit resilience. His work helps organizations around the world harness data to better understand, engage, and inspire their communities. And Nabiha is the executive director of the Mozilla Foundation, where she leads strategic initiatives across programs, products, and grant-making investments to promote trustworthy AI, digital rights, and a more equitable internet. Previously, she served as CEO of The Markup, an award-winning journalism nonprofit recognized by Congress and media outlets for its investigative reporting. Before that, she practiced media law, including as Associate General Counsel at BuzzFeed and First Amendment Fellow at the New York Times. Nabiha serves on boards of the Scott Trust, New York Civil Liberties Union, Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press, and the New Press, and was named a transformational leader in digital civil rights by the NAACP. Y'all, I'm getting some serious imposter syndrome at the moment, but I am so excited. She holds a JD from Yale Law School, an MS from Oxford University as a Marshall Scholar, and a BA for Johns Hopkins. Nabiha, I'm tired just hearing everything that you have accomplished. So I'm so thrilled to welcome you both and cannot wait for this session. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this chat.
I'm genuinely excited as well, Nabiha, and the lead up and our chatting backstage just now. I'm really excited about what you're going to say. That resume is impressive. It's the classic marketing term. Mallory is telling us that you're funny, but you're here to make us laugh. And I'm so excited. I just want to jump right in.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Interrogating the very name of this session. So we're talking about building trustworthy AI. I'm going to start with, is that where the trust is meant to be situated? And what are we even talking about when we talk about being trustworthy?
Thank you. For nonprofits, like trust is the game, right? Like trust is everything. Trust is the currency. And so when we say trustworthy AI, are we talking about taking the trust that we've carefully stewarded in our institutions and just like shoving it into a technology that people think is magic? No. Do not relegate your trust to someone else. I think the task for nonprofits right now is to say, this is a technology. Again, it's not magic. It's this technology like any other requires same critical thinking we use for any powerful tool. Our job is not only to make sure that it doesn't remove or take away that trust that the institution has built, but also, is it worthy, right? Are you applying it in a way that's like worth the time, worth the expense, worth the trade-off, worth the environmental footprint, worth all of this? And that's where I think nonprofits can really lead in this time, because we're not just deploying these as efficiency tools, and we can talk about all the ways that I'm sort of seeing that. But I would challenge folks to think of themselves as like stewards and good ancestors for a technology whose application we don't fully understand, the second and third order effects of what it's going to do in society. And so Mozilla's focus of developing with communities and not just for them is rooted in, if this is going to work for all of us, we need to be bringing communities along in the application of it, not just thinking of it as like, okay, I don't have to draft my own annoying emails now. Boom, done. It's not just a tool. It is an overall approach and lifestyle that we are stewarding in a trustworthy way. It's not about the tech, it's about us.
I think that's so important because while it's clearly a useful kind of on ramp to
Yeah.
be beginning to use these tools for productivity, same as every other discipline.
Sure.
But the real transformational um, offer here is to change our impact and how we work and not just do the same old job a little bit faster and better. But how do organizations navigate that critically? That they're not just adopting, but they're also not waiting.
So there is a great book out there called AI Snake Oil, or AI and Snake Oil. And Sayash Kapoor and Arvind Narayanan. And it's totally worth a read. One of the central animating theses is that for orgs that just jump to adopt a tool, they're more capable of falling prey to claims of snake oil that aren't actually possible. And so how do you inoculate yourself, right? Core operation principle: what are your actual pain points in your org? What are you trying to do? That's where you start before you think about like tips and tricks and efficiencies. Like that's all at the margins, but what's your core? What are you solving for? If you're looking at your org and you're saying, you know what, scheduling is a real nightmare. Okay, great. There's an AI tool for you that can solve that pain point, but you have to understand your business. If you're saying, well, we have all of this unstructured qualitative data around donor insights, and it actually hasn't been structured in a way for us to better understand giving patterns and preferences. Actually, like Gen AI could be really useful for you to structure your qualitative data in a way that you can make sense of it. But all of those efficiencies are downstream from an org sitting down and saying, what are our actual problems? What is the hurdle getting in the way of us delivering in the way that we need to? And the orgs that I see that we work with that have been the most successful in doing this, that conversation isn't just happening at the board level or even at the executive level. It's actually across the whole organization, because often frontline delivery has a real finger on the pulse of what's not working, right? And
Sure.
so it's both like that precision of like, what are we trying to do, what are the pain points, what are the hurdles, and then the making sure you have the feedback loops across the org that's actually the right read and not just what you think might be the read. Then you choose the tooling. Okay, and then you think about, do you have the data capacity, do you have the engineers, do you have all of that? All downstream. That's later. Do the core work first.
This sounds a lot more invested in the outcomes and the people than making an AI or a data policy. Is
Yeah.
is there is there something? Are we special as a nonprofit sector? Like what will make this technology worthy for the nonprofit sector? Is it different from other industries?
Ooh, I think there is a special opportunity here, and it goes back to being a good ancestor or steward in this moment, which is because of the double bottom line orientation of our work, right? Because of the services we provide, we have touch points into communities to bring them along in this transformation that's happening. So if leaders are thinking not just about like, how do I think about the unit of the organization, but actually societal transformation that I'm helping steward people through. If you have a community centric approach, you're going to be able to have people learn about AI, learn about technology along the way, alongside you, while also better informing your own work and your own selection of tools and the areas in which you need more efficiency. So, the community centric approach, I think, allows you to enhance your impact in a different vector than you might have otherwise had. And that feels different than an organization that's like, a small business doing direct to consumer, right? Where it's like
Mhm.
your lane of impact is like, buy my stuff. And we just have a totally different opportunity here on that level than to click up as an industry, right? So there's the organizational unit, there's how are we serving our communities and bringing them along. As an industry, this is where I think there's so much opportunity. If we start to organize ourselves and say, hey, actually, we're not going to use any tool that has an unacceptable amount of bias towards this particular group, doesn't fit our morals. That there becomes a collective consensus around, hey, before we, in the same way you saw with cybersecurity, right? We're not going to adopt something until it goes through the SOC 2 process. We're not going to adopt AI tools until it goes through this process. If, as an industry, we opt into that, the collective market power and the signaling of that is huge. We just got to get organized. In order to get organized, we got to know what we're talking about. And to know what we're talking about, we need a level of tech fluency to feel enabled to do that. So a lot needs to happen, but the change is possible on all three of these levels. And that's exciting.
Is there a fourth level then? Is there an opportunity for this sector to influence the development of these fundamental tools more broadly outside of the sector then? If we're building good tech to do good, can it make the tech good?
And this is like Mozilla's reason for being, right? Like the reason we exist in the world is we really believe there is a future in which like tech is good and that alternatives are possible. And maybe an industry signal, maybe it's big enough for these big players to care about it. But guess what? There's a whole other burgeoning industry, all of these new organizations, all of these new companies that are saying, okay, I want to build something that's actually useful. And I think my bet is that what that means is you're going to see the evolution of sector specific tooling and opportunity, sector specific industries, just like you see with any technology. Any technology starts to get that level of specificity as the maturity of the demand from that industry says, like, not that. I don't want that shoe. It doesn't fit. I want something that's for me. And I think building those relationships with developers to say, like, actually, we need something fit for purpose for this org, huge opportunity to influence and to change. So I totally agree that fourth dimension is there.
Great. And I want to come back to that fit for purpose question, both the opportunity and the gaps. But first, you've really very eloquently expressed the unique opportunities for this sector and for developing this technology in this sector. Are there unique risks in the nonprofit sector that we need to be cognizant of when as we deploy this?
Yeah, the old adage of like the strength is also the weakness is the case here. The strength for nonprofits is we rely on trust. The weakness is if you break trust and you lose trust, everything is lost. And the reality is that many AI tools are trained on data sets that do not always match up with the values that we as an industry espouse. Okay. So, and you see the headlines, right? Of like, ask a chatbot for, asking advice on a raise, and you will get different feedback if you're a woman versus a man. Why? That's not because of the tool. It's because the data it's trained on is a reflection of the society that we're in, and sometimes the worst parts of that society and the weirdest corners of the internet, because that's how these were developed. And you have a garbage in, garbage out problem, right? Huge opportunity to improve the data quality and improve what's happening. But in the moment that we're in, if you're not playing that game, you're reliant upon tools who, without your knowing, could exhibit bias that creates extraordinary risk for you as an organization. Imagine if you're deploying a tool and you find out that it's favoring donors from certain demographics while overlooking others, right? Deprioritizing certain populations, making assumptions that are very problematic and embarrassing. So it does require that fluency, that knowledge of the bias that's possible. And then critically, are you evaluating that bias? Are you testing for it before you deploy in your org? And the reality is that most orgs don't have the capacity to bias and stress test before adoption, which is why I think that we will see the development of sector specific tools, because not everybody's going to be doing that for themselves. You need an intermediary to do it for you. And that's a rich opportunity, but we don't really have that space yet.
You mentioned feedback loops. How does experimentation address this unique opportunity and these specific risks?
So experimentation is key because let's say you're like, I'm an organization, I'm working in gender empowerment. I'm going to test my tools to see if there's any bias here, right? You can set out with a very specific set of questions of like, my experience before I deploy, I need to understand how this works. You can go out and you can find the consultants and the people to do it. Again, I do think the field will mature to have there be an easier solution, but right now we're doing it for ourselves. Um, that feedback loop can help you understand a lot about both the technology, your own values, and your stakeholders. I also think experimentation that invites a community in is so helpful. And I'll give you a little example. I was just hearing from an old colleague of mine about a guy who was running a hotel in Australia. He's a tech entrepreneur before. He's like, I want to deploy robots to help check people in my Airbnb and automate everything. It's going to be great. He had an open forum with his staff in the hotel. They're like, don't do that. We love checking people in. We love checking people in. And he was like, okay, well, what do you hate doing? And they're like, well, inevitably, when someone checks into the hotel, after about 10 minutes, they're like, I need a new towel. I need a new this. I forgot my toothbrush. Make a robot, automate the piece that's like taking the toothbrush up to the door, like automate the
Mhm.
transaction that is boring, not the human interaction that's additive and fun.
Right.
And so the feedback loops that you can have are how do we enhance the thing that makes us great, the human connectivity, the trust building interactions, and then automate the parts that you don't want to do anyway. Like they're not fun. And you need feedback loops, again, across your org, across your stakeholders in order to identify what those are.
All right. Let's talk about fit for purpose. So, first, what are the tool sets that we need and don't yet have in order to support purpose built solutions for this sector?
Oh, I want to hear your thoughts on this too. So I'm going to put you on the spot in a second, but I think we definitely need evaluation and benchmark tools that are easy to use for end users of like, hey, my org cares about this, this, and this. Um, and like to test models and application there, we need that. That's a huge frontier. I think there is a lot in the sort of donor evaluation, pulling in data from different places to really understand and build donor profiles. I think there's a lot of work that can be done there as well. An area that I have heard about from many program officers is look, especially in an area like funding technology, there is always a knowledge delta of like, you know what you know when you were practicing it. Then all of a sudden you start giving money away. Are you giving away money to resource yesterday's problems, not tomorrow's problems? What's your information management? So you're keeping on top of all the new research, all of those things that shape trends. And I think there is a huge opportunity for that sense making of an enormous amount of inputs that are out there in a way beyond like I follow these 8 people on Blue Sky. Like there's just another level of information curation that's necessary. And I think that is a huge unlock to have for people again to make sure that they're in conversation with the right stakeholders, getting qualitative research in the way that they should be. And there's a lot of opportunity there too. But what do you think? What are you seeing?
Well, I mean, very similar. I think that we need we need data assets. We need things like training texts
Mm-hmm.
that are vetted and are ethically extracted from and by this sector in an environment that enables that interrogation that you're talking about, so that we are able to test and identify challenges. And I think we have such an amazing opportunity to do that in an open source way because we're not commercial competitors,
Exactly.
which is fantastic. I do think one of the challenges that we've seen occurring is particularly when we try to get into things like uh, looking at charitable missions and interventions. If the data that we have is our grant reports that said how wonderful everything worked while the problem got worse, that no amount of AI is going to be able to make sense of that. So what do we need to be thinking about as you talked about being a good ancestor? So what do we need to think about now in order to build a better foundation for the future solutions?
Mm-hmm. I think building the pipelines for richer data is so necessary. Like, how are you? not just relying on like the self-serving and kind of shiny lipstick on grant report,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
what are the other ways that you're actually interrogating, investigating, interviewing, gathering information from stakeholders to get other signals from the field about efficacy? And then how do we create the spaces to have those open conversations in a way that doesn't carry the sort of punitive fear of like, oh no, my, I'm not going to get that grant if I tell the truth. How do we unbreak that, right? Like, how do we incentivize more open information sharing by gathering some of it on our own? And this is where I want to shout out, there's really interesting experiments like the Collective Intelligence Project started doing this thing called global dialogues, where they're using AI to engage in structured conversations with people around the world. And they're using it for like, what do you think the future of AI might look like? What are you afraid of? But imagine taking that same approach to a texted to everybody structured conversation of like, so how did you see this service delivery play out for you? What was your experience here? And so using AI to gather more information and then sense make the enormous volume of quantitative data that we often have for real insights to provide context and then solve better problems. I think that's really the game. It's higher, better quality data in a way that people also understand what they're sharing. There's an educational component of that too.
Yeah. And are you seeing examples of deployment like that that's that visionary and at the forefront of what this tech can promise the sector?
Green shoots, I think there's a lot of experimentation. And what I would love to see, and maybe it's something to carry through from this summit, is creating more learning collectives where people are sharing those kinds of case
I love
studies.
that.
Because that is the gap where I feel like I'll come across people in the wild, or we come across people because for Mozilla, we're asking all the time. But I don't know that there has yet emerged a space where like those case studies are being shared for this industry. And if we can make that space, I think we can really include many more people in than just the people who are always the tip of the spear experimenting.
I love that. And so one of the things that we are addressing, and we are actually almost at time, which is crazy. I could talk to you about
What?
this for hours. I know it's insane. So this is fundraising AI. And so there's obviously lots of applications that are mission focused. We're talking about fundraising. We've seen that there's a huge untapped population in the US of givers who are not being invited to give.
Mhm.
And it's complicated to think about how do we how do we engage these people at scale, but in a very personal way. And there is this sort of
Mhm.
vague promise that AI can do this. FAI finishes today. What should these folks do tomorrow to start building the tool set necessary to do that, assuming they're not going to be able to get that job done this week?
Woo! It's a great question. I would encourage people actually, as your first step, start playing around with open source models and building things for yourselves because you're going to learn and be able to assess the tools that are coming by playing around with what's here today and using them to say, okay, even if it's with hypothetical donors of like, I want to build a donor profile on this person X, how would I go about thinking about what data inputs I need to do that? It's going to start structuring your own feedback loops. And then we can start, you might not be a developer. Folks listening might not be developers, but you at least have a sense of like, this is what information quality I would need for something to be worthwhile. And that's the leveling up and upskilling that we need to have in this community. The tools can get built, but we need to know what good looks like.
I love that so much, and speaks very much to my own experience. Not a technical background. Playing with these tools has been my best way to understand what
Yeah.
they're capable of and to learn what my side of the interface needs to be in order to get an effective outcome. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this conversation already. I look
Same.
forward to connecting with you in Toronto next time you're in town. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much for your insights today.
Thank you. This is so fun. Thanks,
It
everyone.
was. Thanks. I'm assuming this is the part where here comes Mallory.
Dun, da, da! Thank you all so much for such an incredible session. I learned so much, and I really appreciate how you talked about sort of expanding the way we think about inclusivity and the purpose of this tool, and what it really looks like to be doing this work for and combining sort of our resources and our energies towards making sure that the impact the AI has on the sector is good for the sector and good for the most people possible. So thank you all so much for your time. I'm gonna have the feedback screen put up there in a moment. And we still have so much goodness coming for all of you. So please give us your feedback. Let us know what you thought of that incredible session. I learned so much. And so you can use the QR code. And then we have a lot of different things coming up. Actually, I'm going to leave that up a second because I don't see the CTA going up anytime as, oh, there we go. All right, maybe we're having a little delay. Again, what would a tech conference be without a few tech challenges? I don't know. I've never been to one. So please let us know. Your feedback. We're always looking to create new resources and tools based on what we're hearing from all of you. And then I want to tell you what is coming down next in all of the different rooms. So on the Amplify stage, I'm actually going to be jumping over there right now to join my team over at Practivated. We're going to be talking about closing the gap between insights and action, how AI can help you be more human in donor conversations. If you haven't seen my new tool, Practivated, where you can have AI simulated donor conversations, we're going to be doing that over there. On the innovation stage here with Sammy Zoss, the show we talked about smart, safe, and compliant, a practical approach to AI compliance for fundraisers. And on the impact stage, they're doing the next era of segmentation, annual giving meets artificial intelligence. And I am saying goodbye to the innovation stage for the rest of the day today. It has been so amazing to be with all of you. My incredible friend, collaborator, FAI Advisory Council member, Sammy Zoss, is going to be taking over here for the rest of the day. I have a few different sessions that I'll be speaking on, one later with Kaz McGrath and Nina Doss. So I hope to see you all there. The day is not over. There is so much more goodness to come. But thank you for being such an incredible part of my day here on the innovation stage. And I cannot wait to participate in the rest of the day with all of you.